No more clickbait, no more sound bites, and no more videos that are over before you blink. No more being told to click this or to share that because some people think you can't think. Choose a new way of doing things. Choose real people. Choose real stories. Choose the Real Talks podcast. Now in her 23rd season at the top level, it was a real honour and privilege for me to sit down with Cora Staunton for the latest episode of the Real Talks podcast. Having made her debut for the Mayo senior team at just 13 years of age, Cora has gone on to win 4 All-Irelands, 10 All-Stars and become a household name due to her incredible longevity, mesmerising talent and amazing ability to consistently get huge scores on the pitch. Over the course of the hour, Cora talked openly and honestly about what it's like to be seen as the face of ladies football, how sport has changed her life for the better, the impact the death of her mother had during her teenage years, and why, after all this time, she keeps coming back for more. If you enjoyed this conversation, please do subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Stitcher or SoundCloud. We've already had over 24,000 plays and been listened to in more than 60 countries. For any iTunes listeners, I'd really love if you could review the podcast, as it helps to keep us at the top of the charts and help spread the word about the show and what we're all about. This podcast is brought to you thanks to the support of Kelly Bradshaw Dalton, who for over 20 years have been selling, renting and managing property in the Greater Dublin area. Be sure to check out their website at kbd.ie, that's kbd.ie. My name is Alan O'Mara, and you are listening to episode 9 of the Real Talks podcast. I'm absolutely delighted to have you as part of the podcast series. I know you said you've been listening to a few of the different episodes, and we've just had really different personalities, different stories, different journeys. And I suppose everyone's just been sharing different life lessons that people have found really beneficial. So I'm absolutely delighted to be sitting down to have this conversation with you. You've had an amazing career to date, and I think journey is probably the right word, with lots of peaks and troughs and everything in between. And I'm just looking forward to having that conversation with you. Starting off, I was going to jump straight through, and obviously you're going into your 23rd season at the moment as an inter-county player. I suppose it's just an incredible stat, something that I look at and I just think, wow. I think most people that do look at that number think it. And I think just the first question that was on my mind was, what lured you back in to go again? Why keep going?
I suppose a lot of people have asked me that. I suppose I thought long and hard this year, more so than any year about it. I suppose the older you're getting, I'm 35 now, you have to kind of think long and hard about it. I've always said to myself from a young age, I suppose if I'm enjoying it and I'm fit enough and still able to play at the top of my game, then I'll continue to play. I felt them factors, I still was enjoying it. Fit enough probably was a couple of niggles, and I still feel I'm at the top of my game. So I kind of sat down, maybe took a month or so off after the club. We lost the All-Ireland semi-final at the end of November. Kind of took a couple of weeks off over the December period, and then kind of thought about it with a couple of my close friends on the team to see would we give it another year. I suppose we were very close last year, losing to Dublin in the semi-final. So with all them factors, and I suppose meeting a few people along the way, maybe over the Christmas period, I remember especially meeting the likes of Andy Moran. Was one person that hit home, and he said, sure, why would you retire? He said, you're still well able to play, it'll be long enough that you'll be retired. And I kind of heard that from a few more people, and I suppose with thinking would I be able to have time with working 2 jobs and doing everything, I said, sure, why not give it another go? So yeah, once we did kind of the decision made, we went back straight into it. People said, oh, maybe go back in April or May, but I suppose once I'd be the type of person I want to get back into it straight away. And if I left it till April or May, I probably wouldn't have gone back. So yeah, I kind of went back the week before the league then, and yeah, back at it for the last couple of months. So enjoying it anyways at the moment. Yeah, training obviously hard, but enjoying every minute of it at the moment.
I think that Christmas period in particular, I think most GA players will relate to that, when it's will I, won't I, should I, shouldn't I. The Christmas just gone, was that a period of time where you've deliberated the most, maybe?
Yeah, I suppose obviously, yeah, it definitely has been the most time that you deliberated the most. Definitely the most time I've probably sat on the fence. Other years you'd be deliberating about it, but you'd be kind of maybe 70-30 saying, I know I'll go back. But this time it was definitely 50-50, or if it was probably a little bit on the side of 60-40 that I won't go back. So yeah, you have to give, obviously after losing in the club in the semi-final, you have to give yourself a mental break away from it all. Obviously the disappointment of that, and then kind of just to try and switch off. It's very hard trying to switch off from it. You still always keep yourself ticking over during that period, going for the odd run or whatever, keep yourself in relatively good enough shape. And then I suppose it was when January came, management didn't put a huge pressure on us, but they still wanted a decision. I suppose the media were putting a bit of pressure on me. I met them at one or two events, and I kind of said to them, oh yeah, I'll have a decision soon, but even though I hadn't a decision made, and I suppose it was just to make a decision before the start of the league, it was probably to give the team time to move on. You're either back or you're not.
Just clear up the uncertainty on it.
Exactly, clear up the uncertainty, and it's not fair on the rest of the team. So I suppose I met with Yvonne, Byrne and Martha Carter, the two older girls that I've been around with for a while, and we kind of decided together what we wanted to do. There was pros and cons to each of us, and I suppose then we kind of said, you know what, we'll give it another go. And yeah, that's what we've done, and we've had a mixed league since then. But you'll have that. But we're all back playing and playing well enough and fit enough at the moment. So yeah, we're happy with that.
I'm going to park this year for now, and I think we'll come full circle and take it back to it. I suppose jumping back to the beginning, and you're probably sick of being asked this question, but even as I was reading up, and it was one of the things I heard about before, was being called into the Mayo senior team at 13 years of age. It was something I just was like, what? Like, how does that happen? I'm just curious just for you to explain that a little bit and what your memory of that is now.
Yeah, I suppose my memory is quite good because that's part of my work with Sky Sports and the Living for Sports programme. You're telling your story probably 2 or 3 times a week, so it becomes nearly that you can tell it off straight away. What I remember of it as a 13-year-old, I was in first year in school at the time, in Ballinrobe Community School, and I had went to Ballinrobe Community School, different school to my older brothers and sisters. I went to Ballinrobe because I wanted to play football, so my parents eventually let me go there, where my other 5 older brothers and sisters would have gone to a different one, and solely that was based on a Gaelic football decision, no other decision.
So even at that young age you were fighting for that's where I'm going to play football.
Exactly, yeah, because I would have had a fail All-Ireland one with my club Carnacun at the time, and we'd have got to an All-Ireland final in community games in Mosney. It was Mosney at the time as well. So I suppose I'd been in 2 All-Irelands before that, won one, lost one. So when we got to secondary school, went there based on football because they had a very good team. So went into first year and made the junior school team and the senior school team.
Right.
And won All-Ireland and All-Ireland in both. So I suppose it was from there that I was probably called into the senior team on the basis of that. And I suppose at 13 just kind of went in. Wasn't really more so a trial, I was just asked to go in for training, and from then it kind of just went from there. It was the National League of that year that I played. National League back then used to have a few games before Christmas, and you play the rest of it after Christmas. There's a break and then you start again in February. So I played the first couple of National League games. I think the first game I can remember was against Monaghan. That I played, and that was really it. I was a very small youngster, didn't probably grow till I was about 16, so I was small with short blonde hair running on the pitch. But it wasn't very uncommon to have girls that young on the team at the time. There was probably a few girls maybe at the age of 15 or 16 on the field at the time, but then there was girls obviously in their late 20s, early 30s as well that you'd be playing against. But I suppose ladies football, while it's a non-contact sport, it isn't as physical as the men's. It's probably got more physical over time. I had a bit of speed, so it probably helped, and my skills were quite good. But that's coming from a basis. I started playing football at the age of 7. I played up till probably around the age of 13 with the boys team.
Okay.
So I was my skills were well honed at that time. And was doing very well on our Ballintober boys team, playing with the likes of Val and Dillon. So it probably came from that my skills were probably a bit of a higher level than some other girls.
Developed.
Yeah, being developed quicker because of playing with the boys for probably the guts of 6 years.
Yeah, so 2 questions on the 13-year-old thing. One, what was it like just even to get the call at that stage? Because I think, I'm trying to think if I was 13, you got a call to go and train with probably a team you've been looking up to or players that you absolutely would have looked up to. What was it like just to find out about that? Yeah,
it was kind of a bit surreal. I'd been playing on underage teams at Mayo at the time, so I was still on an under 14 county team at the time, and I'd been on under 16 and minor teams. So yeah, it was a bit surreal, but I didn't really take much notice of it because I was playing with our club at the time, and which was a junior team. We were junior, then we didn't go up to senior for a few years later. And I was playing against girls that bigger than me all the time, and girls that I'd have been playing against them on a club level, county girls. So yeah, I probably was a bit daunting, obviously, if you look back, but there was girls again my age around me, so, and you were starting on the team and you were doing well, so maybe the first few training sessions were a bit daunting, but I suppose, as a young one, you've no fear and you just go out and play the game as best you can. You probably take a few belts, but you'll get it back up again, so it was probably daunting at the time, but something I obviously relished. And I was on the back of probably winning 2 school All-Irelands, and as I said, winning an All-Ireland failure with our club as well. So it didn't really faze me that much.
Yeah, and the second question I was going to ask is around those first few games playing at that level. What's it like to be in that mixer? Because obviously you've touched upon the physicality stuff there. So I'm just curious, does that make you sort of focus on the other strengths that you have to make your way on the pitch? Do you think that added to your development, been thrown in there?
Yeah, big time. I suppose I had to rely on my speed, and I was very small and not physical at all. So yeah, I had to rely on my speed and your basic skills that I had developed through playing with the boys. But also I could do them skills probably at a higher tempo or a higher pace than some of the people that you'd be marking at. So yeah, they definitely helped. But yeah, it helped me develop things that maybe that you don't think about developing, but things like dummies and stuff like that, they just naturally happen and naturally progress. So yeah, they were beneficial. When you look back now, they probably were beneficial when you physically got bigger and stronger and started to grow. But yeah, you just had to be probably clever, and obviously your teammates protected you as well.
I was going to ask about that. You're obviously looked after.
Being thrown in. There was a club mate of mine that was playing as well, that was 13 or 14 at the time as well. So you have that, and it wasn't that as I said, ladies football is a young person's game. You have girls now, they're making county teams. Okay, you have to be over the age of out the grade of under 16 now to be on a senior team, but there's plenty of 17 and 18 girls making county teams even now. I suppose the level of physical development between male and female is quite different, so there isn't a huge gap.
Okay, so staying with that trajectory of being involved in the Mayo Seniors team, you're obviously you get a flavour of an All-Ireland final after in 1999, building up to, I'd imagine, a day and a moment. You probably thought about a lot growing up, and I suppose you're taking off after 30 seconds in a pre-arranged move.
Yeah.
And I was just going to ask you sort of what your memory of that day is like now when you look back.
Yeah, I suppose it was obviously it was a strange decision to put me on for 30. It was actually about 30 seconds or more at the time. It was strange looking back now.
Why do you think? Sorry, for anyone listening that's not sure on that day, why do you think that decision was made, or what was the rationale behind it?
Well, I suppose the rationale was behind it that I'd been playing football for quite a few years at that stage, and probably been a big player within the team, and I suppose it was the manager's way of rewarding me for being there.
Okay.
While we had a big panel at the time, we weren't a strong panel. We had a lot of really young people on the pitch, on the panel, 14, 15-year-olds. They were never going to get on the pitch that day. We're probably only ever going to use 2 or 3 subs max. So they didn't see it as a waste of a sub. I suppose Finbar Egan, our manager at the time, talked to the Waterford manager Michael Ryan and just felt maybe it was a token gesture. I suppose on the back of that as well, I had been, after going through a terrible year the year before, I'd had lost my mother, kind of 12 months previous to the All-Ireland final. So maybe it was a token for the maybe the tough year I had the year previous, and would probably have stopped playing football for a couple of weeks after my mother died.
Sure.
Just found everything all really hard going, and kind of fell out of love with the sport for a short period of time after that happened. So I suppose maybe it was to do with all that. It was, maybe a bit of sentiment in it as well. Looking back now, it was a crazy decision. Maybe at the time it didn't look as a crazy decision, but we probably didn't have the panel of players that were going to use 5 subs on the day. I'd say that was Finbar's rationale behind it. Taking
all that into account, what's your overriding feeling or emotions around that day? Would it be positive or negative in that you're in the All-Ireland final, you don't get to play, or that the group is there? Is it a bit of both? Yeah,
I suppose it's a bit of both. I suppose obviously the day that it happened and the two or 3 days after the injury had happened, And
it was a collarbone, wasn't it?
I broke my collarbone
the week before the game. Is that right?
The Sunday before the All Ireland, we were having an A versus B game, and I got a belt and I knew straight away it was broken. I suppose it was difficult. The few days after was very difficult because
I can only imagine.
Yeah, I suppose my life had kind of been in turmoil for the 12 months previous, and I hadn't been in a good place for a couple of months after my mother died, and then things were coming back right. I got back involved in football and was loving it. And I suppose then to get the biggest day in your career, and you think maybe it might only happen once, to be injured, I suppose for the day or two after it, I was barely able to speak to anyone. I suppose the only one I spoke to, I'd say in the 2 days after, was our manager Finbar. But then he suddenly made me realise that it's not about you. We've an All Ireland to win, and you need to go to training as positive as you can on that Wednesday. So I had to, on that Wednesday, while I was probably absolutely devastated inside, had to win with a really positive mentality. We were going into that final as massive underdogs. Before I got injured, and even after I got injured, it was even a bigger task. And I suppose to be positive for them, I suppose then from the Wednesday right up to the Sunday, that's what I had to be. Obviously being on the sideline would be certainly a brutal person being on the sideline, can't watch a match, wanted to play. So it was very difficult for the 60 minutes. Obviously when we won the All Ireland and it was very tight, we won by a point, it was massive. The week after was massive. But I probably deep down didn't feel I'd achieved what I wanted to achieve. So I suppose for the next kind of 8-9 months, worked really hard to, along with the rest of the girls, myself personally, to get in really good shape to get back to the All Ireland. And I suppose we're lucky enough we went back that year, the following year in 2000, and won it. And probably you'll look back and say, oh, you missed out on an All Ireland final, but you were very much part of it. I was reading Gooch was asked, was it yesterday or the day before, do you count yourself?
Sure, I've seen that, yeah.
Of course he does. He's a part of the team. Everyone that's there on the day has put in as much work as everyone else over the year. So while it was disappointing, it was very hard as a 17-year-old to take. It moves on, and all these life events probably has made me stronger. My mother's death, injury, whatever happens, you'll have that, and it makes you a better footballer, more determined. Things don't come easy to you. You have to work hard for them.
Yeah, that disappointment, I think, because even though you've been on the team for a couple of years, I think it is important to remember you're still an incredibly young woman, know, and to sort of to deal with all that and probably to digest it in the right way. And I'm sure you had a few days where you were grinding the teeth and you might have been a bit thick, but you do get to come back the following year and to play an All-Ireland final, scoring 2-2 against Waterford. And I suppose, does that day in particular stick out with you as a real positive? Is that one you'd look back at fondly? Yeah,
I do. Obviously, you've been dying to get to play in Croke Park. That's the biggest thing when I was growing up. I don't know if it was to win All Ireland to play in Croke Park. I used to watch the Mayo men on telly the few years previous, obviously losing finals in 96, 97. And I used to absolutely idolise Maurice Fitzgerald, wanting to try and do everything he was doing.
Was he the hero?
He was the hero growing up, yeah. So I suppose not to get out on the field, but we had got, luckily enough that year in 2000, we got to play our semi-final against Tyrone in Croke Park.
Oh, brilliant.
That year. So kind of that had taken the nerves away of going into an All-Ireland final.
Okay.
I got a chance to play in Croke Park, which was brilliant. So obviously, that washed away a lot of bad memories from the previous 2 years. But it's another final, and obviously you're going out to win, and as an 18-year-old at the time, winning your second All-Ireland, a lot of these things as a younger person goes over your head. You look back now fondly and you have great memories from it, but you probably didn't enjoy it as much because you think it's going to happen year in, year out. While it did for the next few years, it hasn't happened, in the last, for us, we have been in a final, but we haven't won a final in the last 14 years. So, it happened in a brief spell for us, and now you look back now and going, geez, I wished I enjoyed it even more, which we did. We enjoyed it as the best we can, but to take everything in as an 18-year-old, you're carefree.
Sure.
I think as you're older, you want to grab them moments and really keep them.
I suppose when we opened up sort of with that decision you had in your own mind at the start of the year, and in your own brain at that stage, is part of your rationale thinking, well, I have my 4 All-Irelands, and the last of those came in 2003. Does any part of you think, I've done my bit and I'll walk away from this? Or is there sort of, I want number 5? Is the number 5 thing anything in your head at all?
Yeah, obviously, of course it is. It's to get back to Croke Park and All Ireland final day. That's obviously the main goal. I also, probably 2 or 3 years ago, it might have been a time to say, as I said, I was enjoying it, but it might be time to say, maybe walk away now. But we're trying to leave Mayo football in a healthy state, because when we go, it won't be just one of us that'll go or 2 of us.
Sure.
There's probably going to be a core of us go.
A leadership vacuum there.
Yeah, and that'll be cut off straight away. So we're trying to instill this into the younger members of our team maybe now. and guide them in the right way. And we were lucky enough, we've been had continuity manager the last 3 years. We have the same management group for the last 3 years, which is good. And it builds a lot in a team. It builds team character. You get to know each other a lot better. So I suppose it's from that point of view. Obviously, you're not playing for any other reason. You have to win a Connacht title and to get to Croke Park on All Ireland final day and hopefully win All Ireland. That's every footballer's dream, whether it's male or female. So yeah, that's ultimately why I'm playing. But if you look at other reasons, obviously playing to make Mayo, put it in a better place, maybe put it in a very stable place because it hasn't been there all the time. And if that's achieved when I leave, and Mayo football go on and win All Irelands when I'm not playing, I'll be delighted because we know we'll have probably nurtured some of these younger girls that are playing now through. So that's probably the second reason behind it.
And actually going back to that, the conversation you made, or the comment you said, Andy Moran said to you that the body's still well able for it. I suppose well able for it's probably a bit of an understatement when I looked it up and you scored 5-15 in a county final last year. The question I have on that one is genuinely, how is that even possible?
I suppose we're lucky enough. Our club is very, very strong and has been, for the last nearly 2 decades. I think since 1998. To now we've lost one county title, so I think we won county title number 18 last year, which is huge, but that's down solely to the development of our club, to a certain number of individuals in the club that has kept it going. Now that won't last for too much longer because there's a core group of us,
it's cyclical as well,
that are around the same age and been around a long time. There'll be probably the guts of maybe 6 or 7 of us that has won them 18 county titles, which is huge. But also when you look at it, we've 11 girls at the moment on the county panel this year, so that's obviously beneficial to our club that we're training at a very high level. But going back to how you score them amounts of matches, I suppose over the last few years the competition in Mayo hasn't been very strong, and I suppose that's my job. I'm a scoring forward, and sometimes you rack up. I just go out and play and take as many shots as you can in a match, and some will go over. Some days you'll score a lot, other days you won't. But that's football. Some days you're double marked, triple marked, and you'll enjoy the day when you're only being singly marked. You'll have that. Mad scores, and people love commenting on mad scores. But there's people that are doing plenty of other work out the field that maybe don't take the shots. I suppose it's it's years of kind of that they're used to maybe getting the ball to me and being the main scoring forward, both the club and county. And I suppose that's where I'm renowned for. And I suppose I've a lot of the time I shoot on side policy, and obviously I've been free taker as well. That it's going to bring up your scoring average on any given day. Yeah, I was always a forward. I probably wanted to be getting the ball and scoring a goal. I suppose as I said, during time, life you'll hit many road bumps. You'll have different problems, whether it's injury or death or whatever it is. I suppose I honestly think the likes of them things make you even more driven. I was, you're lucky enough to have a talent, but you can have a talent and not work on it. But I'd be like that training in any aspect I'm doing. I'm very, very, very competitive. Don't like losing, and I suppose you always want to try and be your best, whether your best is good enough or not. I suppose it's just that's the way it is. Yeah, I'd be very driven as a person within general in sport. And that's football for you. But I do think it comes. I think we have a culture within our club that makes majority of our players are like that. If you met most of our club players, they're quite stubborn and very driven and don't like losing. So
a good attribute to have.
Exactly, yeah.
You mentioned death there, and I know you touched upon your mum earlier on, and I was hoping if it was okay to ask you about that, because I know it's something that you talk to the students about as well. I read that around bereavement, and I suppose the effect that had on both you and on your sporting life. And it was okay just to explore that for a minute and what that was like from your perspective at a young age. Yeah,
I suppose it was very difficult. I suppose my mum would have died when I was 16, so she'd have been diagnosed with cancer when I was in first year in school, and that was a very difficult period in life as well. I moved from a national school of probably around 90 kids at the time to a community school in Bannerope that had roughly around 800.
So big transition, and struggled in first year to make friends, and all I had was football, and football was a constant thing right throughout school, which was brilliant. So towards into first year, moving into second year, mum would have been diagnosed with cancer, so she'd have had it for possibly about 3-ish years.
So yeah, it was a very difficult period of time, and at the time services within the West wouldn't have been there, so she'd have been going to Dublin quite a lot for treatment, and maybe 6 weeks at a time up there, and it wasn't as easy as it is now to get to Dublin. So we might see her once in that 6 week period, because I'm from a big family. There's 8 of us, and I'm the second youngest, so the youngest and second youngest and maybe the third weren't really told much, and weren't allowed to go as much places as the older ones in my family. So yeah, then in transition year, I'd have taken transition year in school to do it, but I didn't really do it because my mother had been very ill at that time, and all my sisters would have been away from the house. They'd have been in college, so I was the only girl at home at the time. So I spent a lot of transition year kind of staying at home minding mom when she wasn't in hospital. Now, and she'd have died then when I was kind of just finished transition year. In the July of transition year, I'd have finished school. So from that, as I said earlier on, that was very difficult for the next couple of months. Was very difficult, and probably fell out a bit of love with sport. Was angry. I thought I was angry at sport because I'd been away from the house a lot. I was playing a huge amount of football at the time, under 14, 16, minor and senior with Mayo, the same with club, and then I was obviously playing school football and throwing a bit of basketball and soccer as well with school and with clubs. So I was, whether I was angry with sport or not, I was just angry in general. So kind of fell out a bit of a love with it, and it was not really going. And obviously good people within my life, coaches, my club coaches, Beatrice and Jimmy, and then obviously our county coach at the time, Finbar, would have all tried to get me back to football pretty quick. So I used to go on odd time and like it, and then not really like it, but eventually went back into it. So that was towards the kind of the end of 98 that I went back into it, and then from 99 was the year that we got to our first All-Ireland. So football has been a great distraction, obviously. Looking back, you're thinking, I was angry at football, burned. All through that time, football was a great distraction. Quite difficult, obviously, to deal with, obviously being in school, and obviously being in a home life. But for the whole family, football was a huge distraction. We went on a journey for the next 5 years, and while none of my brothers and sisters play sport now and played only a bit when they were younger, the whole family probably went on a journey from 99 to 2004, and even now are still on a journey. They come to all my matches, so it was probably a great distraction from them. So yeah, it was difficult, obviously, as a teenager growing up. It's only when you actually sit back and look back at, at the time I'm not thinking like that. Now I'm looking at it as a great journey, and I'm looking back why I maybe stopped for a little while. But you totally understand. And I suppose when I'm relating to this to teenagers in school, I'm always very conscious that I'm in whatever school I am, that there could be a teenager going through the exact same process that I went through at the time. But as I say again, without football, I think I'd have been in a lot worse place if I didn't have it, because of the caring people, the caring coaches, and obviously teammates. Throughout secondary school, it was difficult enough to make friends. All your friends are in sport, and even nowadays, all my friends, majority of my friends are from either college or sport, because you spend so much time with them. But yeah, we were unfortunate enough then, a couple of years after my mother died, to lose one of our club mates in a car accident. So that again hit home. Ashley McGing, so her 2 sisters play with us now and still play with county and club, would have been part of the panel in 2003, but have got dropped. We used to cut panels maybe around May after the league, and a couple of weeks after she'd have been dropped from the panel, we'd have played in a Connacht, I think it was semi-final or final, and on the way to the match she'd have been killed. So that again, that's probably made our club a lot closer, and you're probably on about that culture and driven. That's probably another aspect that's made us really, really tight, and really work for each other, and being there for each other at the time. So I suppose there are 2 experiences of death that we've went through that most people mightn't go throughout their football career, but loads, I'm conscious that there will be people that are going through. I suppose them type of things make you driven. You can think to yourself, my life is hard, but you always look at someone can be harder. And also, I suppose, when I'm looking back now, definitely all these kind of road bumps that happened to you along the way has made me use my talent to the max. It's I could have been lazy and said, I've won this, or sure, it's easy to give up now, or fights against county board, or pulling out your championship, whatever it is. They're all easy things to deal with when you've dealt with what I've dealt with before. So I suppose that's probably another reason that's definitely made me the person, and probably driven, and probably still make me play to the point that I'm 35, and why am I still playing? It's probably making me do that because I want to get every last drop out of what talent that I have.
Yeah, the reason that I asked the question around bereavement is because, like, I know you're involved in schools in terms of the Sky Sports programme, and through my own work at Real Talks, I'm in school groups quite a bit, particularly secondary schools, and one of the things that always jumps out at me is I'll do we'll touch upon certain topics, and it's basically try and break down a wall of stigma and create a space where young people can talk. And the thing I found most interesting at the beginning was there's two things in particular that really affect young people, and one is the end of sort of the first love or the first real relationship, but the second one is always that bereavement piece. And I suppose I was listening to you talking then, and you mentioned about you were left being the only girl at home and sort of and caring and having to deal probably with a lot of responsibility at a young age. If you could go back and whisper a piece of advice in your younger self's ear at that point, is there something that jumps out, or is there something that you would like to say?
It's very difficult, I suppose. Like, if I was looking back at now, I think it's having really caring people and supportive people around you. Like, while you mightn't be as good, you mightn't take it all in back then. But only for I had them people, like I honestly, if I didn't have them people in my life, I'd have struggled so much more. Like, I go back to my club coaches, but I'm very close to them, Beatrice, Casey and Jimmy Corbett, both of them, they've been my coaches now since I was 10, and they're still involved in our senior club team now. If I didn't have people like that to keep me in any way sane and bring me out and maybe get out of the home environment for a while and say, no, you need to break away, I could have been a lot worse than I am now. So it's to have people like that. It's to have people that, again, and maybe have friends that are there for you, maybe when you're not in the best form, and can take you in whatever mood you are at the time. And again, I was lucky enough, I went to a very good school. I had very understanding teachers, a very understanding vice principal at the time, that kind of looked out for you and watched out for you, and maybe didn't give you the grief that you needed at the time, whether it's to do with school or whatever. So it'd be to look out for that you have enough caring people there that watch out for you all the time, because it is difficult. Bereavement's difficult. Everyone deals with it in different ways, and it's only, as I said, that you get time to sit down. My mother will be the guts of 19 years dead now, but it's only when I look back now, it's not in the time, it's not in the 2 or 3 years afterwards, it's when I look back and say to myself, that's what really helped me. But at the time you're in turmoil, and
of course, yeah. The
only constant that I had right throughout that was sport. If I didn't have that, I could see me going down many alleyway, and it wouldn't be too good, so you could have gone anywhere, your life could have led you anywhere else, but that kept you and pulled you into line, which you needed it, and the majority of the people within the team would look after you, management or whoever it is. I know there's a couple of girls that are on our team, I'm not the only one that has lost a parent, or there's been girls in the team that have, and we're there to support each other, and death is a thing that we'll all go through and lose someone, so it's just being able to cope with it and having the coping skills to deal with it, and I suppose right throughout life sports has kept me grounded, that I have them skills to deal with it, and anything that's thrown at me now can deal with it. It's easy to deal with.
No, I think it's an incredibly important point you make, and I suppose it's resilience really is what you're talking about, and it's a thing that's popped up across previous episodes, and particularly Kevin McMenamin talked about it as well, and that I suppose resilience is a skill. It's not something you're just born with, and it's a set amount, and sometimes you do have to go through difficult times to build that and to grow that, and that idea you said there around surround yourself with good people, I think is incredibly important, and it's maybe something that we don't appreciate at the time. And it's just as I was listening to you talking there, part of your drive, your love and your passion to keep playing and still playing is a little part of that because of that you've felt so much good at an earlier age, and you felt the strong and the good side of GA. Yeah,
I suppose people always ask me this, why are you still playing? I was asked this doing a bit of work for Elvery's last week, like why are you still playing, like, and sport, like I keep saying it, sport is a drug. It's it's very, very difficult. I'm doing this now at a senior level for 23 years, but I've been playing sport probably for the last 28 years. It's very difficult to walk away, and I suppose that will be a concern when it goes. What are you going to replace?
Filling that void.
Filling that void. Of course it is. You're getting out training 4 or 5 times a week, and you're meeting the same people. While you give out about training and the physical work, and you'll give out about having to go here. It's in our nature. We moan. Of course, we're going to give out.
Some of us more than others.
Exactly. We're going to give out, but we really enjoy it. You're meeting the same people 4 or 5 times a week. The crack that you have, the banter that you have, whatever it is, when you go to training, it's there every night. So I think like if you're maybe in bad form, you know, on any given day for whatever reason, you go to a training session, whether it's a club or a county training session or to a match, majority of the time you'll come home from that training session in a better mood, which is a huge thing.
Absolutely.
If that's probably the one thing, you know, that I'd be worried about when I finish, that you don't have that. So if your form isn't great on any given day, that what have you to, it's a release from work, it's a release from life, it's a release from everything else. So it's, you know, it's huge. I know no different. It's, you know, I haven't done anything else in my life bar play sport and be there all the time. So it's probably a scary route, and you know, you read a lot of people, professional sports people, that, you know, leave their sport, and it can be a very difficult route for them to fill the void. But you know, that's the thing that you have to deal with. But you know, I think while you're competitive enough and fit enough to keep playing, you know, how long it'll last, who knows.
As I'm listening to you there, I think, like, first and foremost, like, you have one of the most impressive medal hauls of anyone I've ever met. But the thing that's jumping out to me is and I'm going to ask you the question, because I don't think medals is sort of a motivating factor for you involved in sport, is, have you got your medals somewhere, or are they stashed away out of interest?
The only reason I know this, I was doing a video for Lidl there last year, because it was kind of a retirement video, but still haven't retired. So they were coming to my dad's house. All my stuff is stored in my dad's house, to just do a bit of filming. So I panicked kind of, I think it was on maybe a Wednesday or Thursday, the night before. I panicked because I hadn't a clue where any of my medals were.
Really?
So up to the attic to look for them, up to my sister's house in her attic to look for them, and eventually could find most of them in my attic, but I had no idea where they were. In some bag, I don't even think I found all of them. Found a couple of the club ones and a couple of the All-Ireland ones, but they're not displayed in any place. Since that happened, I actually don't. They're probably still somewhere in my dad's house. I wouldn't, in my own house, wouldn't have any display of any trophies or anything. Maybe a couple of pictures of, you know, defining moments. But you know, obviously you're playing. It's easy to say you're not playing for the medals. You're playing for the big occasion. You're playing for the big day, and you're playing for that couple of minutes after you win a big massive match, whether it's a club match or a county match or whatever it is, if a county final or if it's an All-Ireland final. You're playing for that couple of moments afterwards. That's why you're training so hard, is just for that buzz, and maybe, you know, for the next year or two after you win whether it's a county title, a Connacht title, it's for that. That's all you're playing for. You're not playing for anything else, really. You
mentioned a couple minutes ago that, you know, sport is a bit of a drug at times, but is there ever been any times where that actually caused you difficulty, or, you know, maybe it was an unhealthy relationship or balance with the sport?
No, I don't think so. I think it's important that when you have time, you know, time off. So, like, you know, if you're off for a week from training or whatever, or if you're off for, you know, the Christmas period, I've known no different with club, because we've been very successful and we've won a lot of Connacht titles, and we get to All-Ireland series, and the way the ladies' game is ran, that's ran in the one calendar year. So it's been mostly for the last kind of, I'd say 18 years with the club, we've mostly finished in the middle of November, sometimes December. The earliest we've finished has been the end of October. So there's been very little time that we've had off between.
You're constantly on the go.
Between club and county. You're lucky if you've max of maybe 6 weeks, can be less. So there's very little time, but it's important in that downtime when you are off that you can kind of switch off. But again, it can be very difficult to switch off as the majority of friends are involved with it. So yeah, I don't know if it's an unhealthy relationship. I suppose you're not really going to know till you retire, and you'll see how much of a gap that you have, or a void that you'll have to fill. But I don't see myself just going from playing football to do nothing. Do you know what I mean? Because, you know, if most sports people like to exercise in some way to keep themselves healthy and fit anyways, or, you know, you'll get involved in coaching, or you'll be in some way involved to keep playing with the club, so you'll have that. So I just think it's to know, you know, what avenues to go down once you're finished. And I suppose it's things like that. You have things like, you know, the WGPA and stuff like that if you did need support. But I wouldn't be too worried about it. I just think that it's, you know, sport is a great thing, and I'd always encourage. I have loads of nieces and nephews now. You'd encourage among them to be playing it. It doesn't have to be at a huge competitive level, but in some way it's brilliant for creating friendships and, you know, creating memories that you'll have. We're still talking about things that maybe happened 15 years ago. We're still talking about, and you can remember them. So which is massive. If you can remember celebrations from after All Irelands or celebrations after certain matches, or crack that you had maybe on a training weekend, so they're the memories that you'll have, and the things that you'll probably look back on rather than looking back on the trophies and the medals.
What do you do to switch off? Do you do anything?
Yeah.
Where do you get that release from? Because you obviously do need it.
Yeah, I suppose I'm quite busy. As I said, I'm working 2 jobs, so I'm on the road. I'm not a very good person for sitting down watching television or movies. You'll be lucky if I get 40 minutes in the evening to switch off and watch it. Obviously, socialising, going away would be 2 ways of switching off and having the crack. And with my friends, obviously, spending time with my nieces and nephews would be probably the biggest way to switch off at the moment. I have a lot of them that live around me, looking after them or whatever. They'd be the biggest ways to switch off. But as I said, life is so busy, and it's not that you're always thinking of sport. You're thinking about work, and you're here, and you have this and you have that on, or you have people asking you to do different things. You don't really need to switch off. But when you do switch off, it might be in the evening, just sitting down watching telly for a while, or taking my nieces or nephews or wherever, taking them away. That'd be the biggest way to switch off. And obviously having holidays or nights out like that when you get a chance to have them, they'd be the main things. I love watching sport anyway, so if I was to watch anything on telly, it's a soccer match or it's rugby or any sport on telly. That's what it'd be on. There wouldn't be anything really else on. It'd be some sport. So I love going to sporting events. I love all types of sports. So it's a kind of ingrained. I can see myself attending a lot more sporting events when you have time when you're retired.
Sure.
As well.
And you mentioned there the 2 jobs. What's that work life like for you at the moment? So what are those 2 jobs?
Yeah.
And
so my main job, my 9 to 5 Monday to Friday job is in health promotions. I work with an organisation called Mayo Traveller Support Group. So it's a peer-led organisation, so we employ traveller women. So it's all around health promotion within the traveller community in Mayo. So the 11 women are known as community health workers. So I design programmes for them, train them up on certain topics, cardiovascular health, mental health, cancer, whatever the topic is. It's different topics that they train up on. They do training on them. We design traveller-friendly leaflets or posters, whatever it is, and make sure they're literacy friendly for them. And from that, then the community health workers go out and deliver the information to all traveller families in Mayo, which at the moment it changes, is around 350 traveller families. And the other part of the work then is a lot of interagency work. So we work with different agencies like Mayo Sports Partnership, the councils, the Mayo General Hospital, different organisations. So some of our work with the Sports Partnership is all around sport, which is good. I like the kind of mix of that, and kind of designing programmes and getting travellers involved in different physical activities, but not just travellers. We'd say more disadvantaged groups, getting them involved in physical activities and trying to get them included in different sporting organisations, whether it's the GA or soccer. So that'll be the main work with Mayo Traveller Sport Group. The other work I'm doing at the moment is with Sky, which we've mentioned with Sky Sports on the Living for Sports programme. So basically I go around to schools throughout Ireland and talk to normally secondary schools, some primary schools. It's 11 to 18-year-old programme. Talk to them about my journey, like I'm telling you now, as a sports person, where I came from, how did it happen, where I am now, and go through the different 6 keys to success that they can use within sport, within life, within whatever it is. So there are things we talk about like mental toughness, hunger to achieve, planning, different things like that, people skills, all of that. So it's just to give the young people, empower them, give them the information that it might help them on their journey. I talk about obviously my sport and how I have to plan for it week in, week out, and what my plan entails, how often we train, and how I plan my life around that. So yeah, they're both really different work and really enjoying the both. It's hectic because I try to do Sky maybe 2 days a week, and my other job and 3 days a week fitted in. So I'm on the road a good bit with it as well. And then when you're training maybe 4, 5, 6 nights a week, you have to try and fit everything in. But yeah, I'm managing it and enjoying both sides of my work. It's very varied. Some is sport, some is not sport. So it's good to have that mix of both.
It strikes me there as, I suppose, while both jobs are different, both of them are designed around empowering other people and trying to, suppose, help other people. Yeah. Is that something that gives you pride in terms of using your playing experience and that role model status you have to be able to give back and to be able to help other people. Is that something that's important to you?
Yeah, definitely. I suppose it's hugely important. Like, while sometimes you don't maybe look at yourself as a role model, you know, you're just a normal person walking down the street. Okay, a couple more people recognise you. But yeah, I suppose you have to look back and say, well, you know what? There is young kids or people looking up to you, or teenagers, or whatever. So you have to act in the way that you know is best for them. So yeah, I know I love going around and empowering them and telling them my story. Because as I said, I'm very conscious their story could be very similar to mine, or mightn't be at the time. It could be in another 2 years' time. So yeah, no, I really enjoy that side of work. Obviously with the Traveller Women, you know, we've all different opinions around travellers and their culture and their community. So I love empowering them and making them make different or better health decisions. You know, I learn so much from them. Every day they come in, I'm learning from them, which I love. And obviously they're learning from me and what I be teaching them. But like, it's a two-way system. I'm learning all the time. But it's like work with the teenagers. I learn things from them all the time. You know, I'm not the expert. You know, I'm not the expert on traveller health, travellers are. I'm not the expert on teenagers are. So it's to be able to listen, and from that to be able to learn and, you know, make your programmes for what they want. There's no point me going in and saying to the Traveller Women, you have to do this, when they know it's not the best thing to do. So it's, you know, and it's a skill sometimes. I think I always say to the teenagers or kids in school, it's one skill that maybe at times people aren't very, very good at listening. We're all eager to tell our story and maybe not listen to other people's. And it's the child that's not listened to, that maybe has the best answer or knows how to solve whatever, you know, problem that we're doing or whatever. So it's important that everyone has a voice. And I suppose that's the biggest thing when I go out, that I made sure the quietest child in the school or the loudest child in school, they're both heard equally, which can be difficult. But yeah, it is about empowering people and making better choices, whether it's within health or within your own life. Yeah, so there's a good mix, as I said, it's a good mix between sport and getting away from sport as well.
I mentioned the role model status that you would be held up to. I don't know about how comfortable you are with it or not, but I picked out a quote from, like, your manager Frank Brown said at a press conference at the start of the season, that he said she's up there with the likes of Katie Taylor and Sonia O'Sullivan as one of the great athletes of our time. How does that sit with you when someone says or gives you that level of praise? How does that sit with you?
It's alright when it's Frank talking, because it's normally a load of rubbish.
No, seriously though.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't take it that very well. I'd be in general terms, and I suppose my close friends that would know me best, I wouldn't be the most outgoing. I'd be pretty shy within a normal social circle. We'd say we're on a day trip or a night out, I'd be one of the shyer ones. I wouldn't be one of the loud ones. So obviously you get that a lot of attention. I don't mind getting the attention, but I probably wouldn't be very good. I'd deflect praise away from me all the time. You know, if people said, "Oh, you're brilliant," or whatever, I'm like, "Oh no," I wouldn't be good at taking on the praise. I'd kind of deflect it, because at the end of the day, I'm very conscious. I'm only one member of a team of 15 or a team of 30. And forwards will always grab the headlines. Do you know what I mean? You know, there's girls that put in as much effort as me, if not more, and play as well as I do, and maybe don't grab all the attention. And I suppose my longevity of my career has probably made that, people that maybe people hold me in a bit more higher regard because I'm playing for so long. I think I don't mind talking to people about football in any way and meet them on the street. But you know, I'm a normal person, that walks down the street every day. I'm like everyone else. So yeah, probably wouldn't take it in the best. I'll always deflect it away from me. But that's because I'm conscious that I am only one member. I'm not an individual sport. I'm part of a team sport. And
the reason I suppose that I asked that question is a lot of the series and a lot of the conversations I've had have been around basically showing people that, you know, players are people as well, and it's not just an athlete you point the finger at and just presume it's that. And because the thing that sort of jumped out at me is that because of the longevity of your career and the success of it and the high level of performance over a long period of time, I think you're sort of held up as, you know, like Miss GA, and people say I think people have the automatic presumption that you're a very outgoing person, that you're bubbly. Or has there ever been times where that's, and you said yourself there that there's times when you're a shyer one in a social circle. Has it ever challenged you in terms of that personality side or off the pitch?
Yeah, I suppose it has to challenge you a bit. It has to make you become more outgoing. even now I'm getting slightly uncomfortable talking about, like, I get getting embarrassed, because at the end of the day I am only a normal person. I go home and that's it. I'm Cora at home. I'm not Cora the footballer. And I suppose at times, even throughout work, even here in working in Mayo Travel Sport Group, people see me as Cora the footballer, not Cora at work. And I know that can while it can be annoying sometimes, it's just to distinguish. Yeah, it's like that. That everyone can come and talk to you, and you're like that. You're their property. They want to talk to you, and I don't mind talking to them in any way. But people do forget that you're just an individual person. And you might be out for to the cinema with your friends, or you might be on a quiet night out. And as I said, I don't mind people in any way talking to you and that, but sometimes do forget about it. But it's not that bad for me. I look at, even we'd say in the media this week about the men's intercounty footballer, it's like the life of, we'd say, Aidan O'Shea, how much criticism he's come in for a week. People do forget he's to go home to a family. Sure. He's a person. He's doing his job. He's an amateur sports person. He has to go to work Monday 9 to 5. It's very difficult. While it probably doesn't bother Aidan, it's probably water for ducks back. He's a mother, he's a father, he's brothers, he's a sister. His aunties and uncles that may be reading this stuff and can be. I find that part of the GA can be. You forget that. He's people reading that, and I know he's a public figure and everyone wants a piece from him, but he's his own life at the end of the day too. So that kind of at times annoys me when you're looking at that. That doesn't really happen to me. Okay, it happens in an odd time. The biggest thing the biggest time it gets to me would be in the middle of a match, club or county match, whatever, and my dad's in the stand, or my sister's in the stand, or my nieces and nephews, and I have a few nieces and nephews that will kind of be able to understand. The oldest one is only 6, but she's able to understand what people are saying. Yes. And if it's very negative about you all the time, or it's bad language, or every time you miss a score you're booed, or there's a cheer or whatever, she's kind of starting to understand what's that. And question it. And my father's a very, very quiet man, would never say much at a match, just comes to watch it. But if you've someone for the whole 60 minutes standing beside my dad that doesn't know it's my dad, or beside my sister, and I suppose a lot of bad stuff has been said about you, which is always the case. There's every match that you'll go get booed. It doesn't bother me, but it bothers me to think that, okay, they're listening to that in the stand and can get quite heated. Now, my dad wouldn't. My brother, if he was here, he lives in Australia, and he's there in the stand. There's a high chance that he might get really annoyed and it could go into a fight. But it's that type of stuff. I think people don't understand that you're a person. If that was the person in the stand doing that, if that was their daughter, or their son, and they're being basically vilified, like Aidan O'Shea is, or like if I am on match day, how would they feel if that was their daughter or son? So it's that part of the GA I don't like. So that's why a lot of the time, I like to go to a football match. I like to go and watch the Mayo men versus Sligo on Sunday in McHale Park, but I'll try and stand away from everyone because I don't like to hear that stuff, because at the end of the day, myself, Aidan, or whoever it is, are going out just to play football because we love the game. We're trying to go out to do our best all the time. Every day is not going to be our best day. You'll have bad days, and with people shouting abuse at you or booing you or whatever it is, there's many things that'll happen. It's fine. It probably eggs me on, wants me to perform better, but you're actually thinking about, okay, there's people in the crowd that's listening to this, and is it right for them to be listening to it? So that's that side of it. Yeah, probably I don't like, but that's life. You've put yourself where you are, and that's it.
Just taking on the media angle, because I was going to finish up the conversation around particularly the female participation in sport. Around on the media angle, do you feel that the industry needs to step up a little bit in terms of promoting women's games across the board?
Yeah, I suppose, there's been a huge amount written about promotion of ladies football, and how is it to have the two sides, they're getting treated as well as the men and all that. Yeah, the promotion side of it has to step up, but the work has to be done by us ourselves. Do you know what I mean?
What do you mean by that?
I suppose, and they're doing it, ladies Gaelic, with getting the likes of Little on board and bigger sponsorships, and getting people that are role models. When I was growing up, I didn't have any female GAA role model. I didn't have anyone that I'd say it was Maurice Fitzgerald, and that was it. I didn't really know of many other ladies footballers growing up, But nowadays, we've what little there. There's so many more role models. You know, it's on television. They're seeing more. The attendances at All Ireland finals are growing. You know, it's maybe at times that, you know, we're always comparing men's and women's. Why are we comparing? As you said, we're our own separate identity. And maybe just to drive that on. I do think it's very important that for people to watch more ladies football, they're going to need to see it. So double headers, I do think, is the way forward. That
you obviously experienced that this year, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And I've experienced it other times as well. Even if you get to go in to play a Connacht final in McHale Park before the men, and even if only 500 extra people come in to watch it, and 200 of them enjoy it or whatever, that'll build and build. So like I just think at times that's the biggest downfall, that we should be having way more double headers. We could be playing a league match here on Sunday down in Swinford and the men are playing in Casper. We could be playing the same counties. It's just with the organisations being separate, ladies football being an organisation on their own, the GAA being an organisation on their own, I feel until the two of them come under one umbrella are them problems going to be solved. Who knows? There might be. If the ladies football go in under the GAA and Camogie go in under the GAA, will that make things better? It could, and it might make it worse. Do you know? So it's very difficult. It's a balancing act. Which one is going to be the better? But I do think, you know, you look at successful breed participation. You look at the Cork ladies being the biggest example. Their the women's football clubs are growing and growing and growing there because of their success. I know when we were doing
and it's because young people have role models as well that they have access to.
When we were doing well, it was the same. Our clubs were growing and growing. That's what, and you need more role models, but they need to be visible. Okay, do you know, they need to be seen on televisions. They need to be seen on advertisement, billboards, whatever it is. You know, they need to be seen. They need to be seen like Aidan O'Shea or Colm Cooper or Lee Keegan, whoever it is. If they're seen all the time and they're seen week in, week out on television, that they know who they are. Like in Cork, all the Cork ladies are known. We need to have more role models within the ladies' game, and by that's been doing it. That's in the media more. It's on television more. It's in the newspapers more. I suppose they're doing their bit with television and Tina G or TG4. And you know, I suppose they're doing their bit with billboard campaign and all that. I suppose we're lacking a bit obviously in the print media. It's not as much. Locally here, I think we're excellent. I think the local papers in Mayo have always been very, very good to women's sport, and especially to the ladies GAA. I couldn't argue with any of them that they do a lot of good work, and the same with Midwest, and they do a lot of, you know, they have all our games live, club games, they have a lot of them live as well. So they're doing their bit. I think sometimes the national media don't take up as much on ladies football. They'll cover it maybe on All Ireland final day, on All Ireland semi-final day. How do you change that? I don't really know. I think again, you know, the more access there is, the more football they're seeing, and the better quality football they're seeing, that maybe from that they'll do it. And I think that the more female pundits there in the GAA, you go watch the Sunday game on a Sunday, it's all male, and they think women don't know anything about football, or Sky, it's all male. You know, who's to say that, you know, whoever it is don't know as much as Pat Spillane or whoever's on the chair, do you know, Colin O'Rourke. You know, just because they're a man doesn't mean that they know as much as they know more than you than ladies football. You know, I feel that I know as much as, you know, most about football and from watching sport, but it's kind of frowned upon. So until that changes, things probably won't get better. There's a lot of things that has to change, but it is changing slowly, and more promotional the work that's done, and the more female role models that are out there, the better. But it will take time. So
the last thing I'm going to throw at you is I dug into the sports file archive here. So the picture on the left is you playing in 2000, and the other one is more recently. I think that was the game in Croke Park. I think this year. Yeah. So I've got two questions around that, because obviously they're a significant period of time apart, and it's I think it's a nice capture of your own journey as well. I suppose the first question is, what's the biggest change in ladies football that you felt over that period of time? And the second question that I'll ask is, what's the next big challenge for female sport? What's the one thing you'd like to see driven home or driven on?
Okay, so this first question, what's the biggest change in ladies football? So that's 2000 and that's 2017, so that's 17 years.
Big change in the gloves for a start.
Yeah, it's a big change in the hairstyle and the gloves are the biggest thing. The Cassins are gone, the other ones into the Murphys. As you can see, I'm still wearing black boots on both occasions. Never went to the coloured boots. I think you have to be someone to wear them. So the biggest change, I suppose, in ladies football, it's grown and grown. It's got faster and faster. The standard of the game has gone up. It's become a lot more physical. Even though, again, it's not a contact sport, but it's a quite physical sport. I suppose over that period of 17 years, while we trained very, very, very hard back in the period that we're doing well in that 5 or 6 year period, never like I've trained before, but I think over that period it's gave us a base that we probably don't ever need to train as hard as we did back then. But I suppose it's the professionalism in the last kind of number of years, and I talked about it earlier on, the levels that you're expected to go, the detail, from strength conditioning to diet, like where we had that in very small amounts, to nutrition, to video analysis, just the amount of time that it takes up.
Sure.
God be with the day that you could turn up for a club match or a county match, probably not a county match, but a club match, about 15 minutes beforehand, tog out,
just lace the boots,
maybe do a lap and train. Nowadays it's so time consuming.
Do you think that attracts people to the game or puts people off out of interest?
It's probably, it can be a bit of both. I can see why it probably puts people off. People like the professional element of it too. That's what we're asking for. So I feel the difference, even in the last kind of 5 or 6, 7 years, is that the time that it takes up. So like you have your strength conditioning, you're doing your, you arrive at training a good hour beforehand and you're doing all this, training's meant to start at 8, but you start at maybe at 7:10 doing all this plyometric stuff and all of this, foam rolling and all of that type of stuff maybe that you didn't do. And then obviously it's video analysis is a huge thing. We wouldn't have done any video analysis back then, where we're doing it now all the time. You have your Dropbox and you're watching your match. You play a match on a Sunday, you're watching it on a Monday morning, and then you're watching your clips on a Monday afternoon, and you're watching your opposition on a Monday night.
You love this part of the game though, do you?
I do, yeah.
Yeah.
I'd be very critical of my own performance, so I'm always picking out bits to try and make you a little bit better. So you'd spend an awful lot of time watching clips and videos and stuff, and watching analysis of other teams, and trying to find the weaknesses in your opposition or maybe your individual marker. So stuff like that's changed. Just everything from diet, nutrition, all that has changed. So that's probably the biggest change. The game has got so much faster. It's got so much more physical. The levels that you need to be at now is massive. So as I always say, I'm fitter now than I was back then.
Yeah.
You think you're fit back then, but you're a lot fitter, you're a lot stronger, all that. So the second part of your question.
So just to lead you into that, if the game has got faster, the game has got better, and the game has got more physical, what's the big challenge then for the game going forward?
Well, I suppose obviously the biggest challenge for the game going forward, they still say it's the fastest growing sport within Europe. So the challenge obviously is all around what we talked, is around the promotion of the game, and making the game bigger obviously first of all within each county, and then with nationally, getting your attendances up at matches, getting attendance in the All Ireland finals. I spoke about having obviously a men's and women's final together. If there's a day that we can have 60 or 70,000 in a women's final on our own, that'll be brilliant. So the biggest challenge going forward is definitely the promotion around it. The other challenge I find around, and I've seen it in my own club, and I'm involved in an initiative with Ladies Gaelic called Gaelic for Teens, is girls dropping out of sport. And it's not just ladies football. Probably ladies football obviously is the biggest sport within for girls within Ireland, is the dropout rates between that age of kind of, I'd say between 13, 14 to about 16, 17. There's a huge dropout.
That's obviously a big transition for a young person.
For a young person, yeah.
Particularly female.
Female, yeah.
So what can be done for that period then, if that's something
I suppose it's
tackle?
The thing, Well, ladies football are very aware of it, and obviously have this Gaelic for teens and girls, maybe they've dropped out already back into programmes. But I think it needs to be, that's only done, it's only been done on a pilot basis with a couple of clubs so far. I think about 8 clubs, but that needs to be widened. There needs to be someone within each club.
That's something you want to grow.
Yeah, someone in each club that nearly needs to be looking after. And I've seen in my own club, I'd meet girls now that maybe I've coached in my own club or I played with that dropped out of that age group. And you'll see so many of them that want to come back, maybe 25, 26, because they said, you know what, we've missed out in a period there. Like, you know, to see what football has done for us, as in like, has bonded us. It's like community. They've missed so much, and they come back in and going, why did I come back a lot earlier? You know, it's that, you know, camaraderie, banter, crack, whatever you want to call it. They've missed that, and you see so many females now that maybe stopped playing sport at a young age and got back into something, and they're like, they love it. They crave that competitiveness. They crave, obviously, that physical activity, to be involved, whatever it is, to be involved in a group and to be fit and healthy. So it's to hold girls at that age. Something big needs to be done. I suppose with males, I'm not sure if the dropout rate probably isn't as high, but I think you need certain initiatives within clubs to work on keeping young girls in sport, because you said, as it is, it's a big transition for them physically with their body at that age, and obviously a lot of things happen to you at that age. The social side of life comes
different
in.
pressures.
Yeah, different pressures. There's a huge amount of things, and I just think there's nothing better for anyone's physical health than playing any type of sport, but there's nothing better than for anyone's mental health than being involved in sport. You know yourself, I know myself, if I don't get out and go for a run or get out and play football for a few days, I can feel my mental health isn't the way it needs to be. After I go for a half an hour run, I'm in a lot better place. And I think obviously the way Ireland is now, and obviously mental health and suicide rates, that you know that's increasing all the time, and I think sport is the one way that can help a lot of these problems that maybe, you know, teenagers and young people are having. It's a release, as I said earlier on, but it's also a place that you feel safe and that you can talk to people and you feel very comfortable within, and you've really majority of the time have really good coaches and people there that are there wanting to help you all the time. So it's a place for everyone, and I've seen kids that aren't, or teenagers that aren't involved in sport, that struggle. You know, the majority, while you'll have individuals within sport that will struggle with their mental health, the majority of them aren't involved in sport and don't have that closeness, they don't have that team bond, they don't have that friendship, and then they don't obviously have the physical, they're not playing sport to improve their physical and mental health. So I think that's a challenge within the whole of the GEA, but also within Ireland, and you know, something maybe that needs to be looked at a bigger stage, like at government level. But I do think it's the way forward. It has been for me, that if I didn't have sport, you know, you could have gone down many bad alleyways, and you know, your life mightn't be as good from a physical and mental point of view.
You'll be glad to know I'm gonna wrap up now and let you off the hook. But before I do, I just want to straight up thank you for your honesty and your insight, and for sharing a lot of the lessons you've had on your own journey. I know you don't like getting praise, and you've said that, but for me, I think you're an incredible ambassador, not just for female sport, for our games in general. And I just want to thank you again. It's been an absolute pleasure to go through your own journey, and even just looking at those two pictures there, picking out the life experiences from it. So thank you.
No bother.
Best of luck, everything yourself on the pitch for the season ahead. I hope you get that number 5 that you crave and that you're after. And as well as that, best of luck with everything on the field and everything that comes your way moving forward. It's been an absolute pleasure to have this conversation. It's episode 9 of the Real Talks podcast, and I'm absolutely delighted that it was yourself, so thank you.
Thanks a million, really enjoyed it.
Make sure you don't miss out on any future episodes by heading over to realtalks.ie to subscribe to the show, or just search for Real Talks on whatever platform you are listening on today. There you can also find previous episodes with the likes of Tipperary's Brendan Maher, Dublin's Kevin McMenamin, Armagh's Jamie Clark, and Offaly's Niall McNamee. If you want to get in touch, you can get me on Twitter at AOMTheCat, or through Real Talks IRL. And once again, I'd like to thank our sponsors, Kelly Bradshaw Dalton, for supporting this podcast. Check out their website at kbd.ie for all your property needs. My name is Alan O'Mara, and you've been listening to an episode of the Real Talks podcast.